Welcome to the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast, where being a badass has less to do with what you wear and what music you listen to, and everything to do with whether you've got the thriving online business of your dreams. I'm your renegade thinking Harvard Law grad turned online entrepreneur host, Bobby Klink. In my years building my thriving business, the most important lesson I've learned is that being a badass online marketer isn't about secret strategies or ninja tactics. It's about doing the basic stuff right and showing the F up. So each week here on the show, you'll get clear, easy to execute guidance on how to build your online business and a swift kick in the ass or two to make sure you're getting it done. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Friday Live episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about something that's really important, something we need to be talking about as entrepreneurs, and that is how being an entrepreneur isn't just about tactics, it isn't just about strategy. It's equally about the mindset we bring to things, and it's about how we approach things. It's about how we think about things. It's about what's going on up here, and that's something that it took me a while to learn, and it's one of the lessons I learned from my coach, James Wedmore. It's one of kind of the most important lessons that I've learned from him, and so I wanted to talk about that today and kind of share my thoughts about that and why mindset is so important and some examples of things that you know, I kind of are some of the biggest mistakes I see when it comes to mindset issues and that you can't solve until you do this work. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, aside from that, I do want to say this episode is brought to you by my friend James Wedmore. He is going into a launch of his product, Business by Design. We've put together a resource page of some of his best podcast episodes that really help kind of encapsulate a lot of the lessons that I've learned from him. And so we've got that page together. If you want to go over there and listen to some of these great podcasts, it's got links to all of them. And there's a bunch that talk about mindset issues. So that's over there. You can get that by heading to bobbyklink.com/BBD. Again, bobbyklink.com/BBD. Now, with that, I want to dive in to kind of the mindset issue. And I want to start from the perspective that strategy and tactics aren't enough. And it's kind of weird because when you start as an entrepreneur, when you're getting started, you think that's what you need. You need to learn, you know, how to do a webinar and how to create a course and how to do social media and how to do all of that stuff. That's kind of what you think it's going to take to become successful. And I'm not saying that you don't need to do those things. I'm not saying you don't need to understand marketing. You do. But what I'll tell you is that understanding marketing, knowing that stuff is great, but it's not going to get you kind of to the breakthrough. Because there's a lot of people who know that stuff. There's a lot of people who know the different marketing things, but they're not successful. And you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it could be that they kind of have it and they don't, but a lot of it is mindset. And part of the mindset work is understanding that you don't have to do all that stuff. Like you hear me talk about that all the time, but that's just one example of the mindset. And before I really got into James's world, candidly, you know, it's kind of funny now that I sit here and I'm having this conversation because I kind of thought I didn't really have a lot of mental baggage. I thought, you know, I needed to deal with some imposter syndrome, like, you know, believing that I belong sitting at the table with, you know, kind of other big name entrepreneurs and influencers. But I didn't think that I really had much kind of, you know, crap going on up here other than that. But, you know, I did. And now I recognize that I had so much mental baggage. And I think part of the reason why that's where I was, you know, before I really started doing this work is, you know, it's a quirk of my personality and the way my mind works. And, you know, I've kind of recognized this in working with James and a couple of things that we've done. Like, there are some things where I don't have a lot of kind of the mental stuff that other people do. because of just the nature of the way my brain works. And this kind of came up last November. We had an expert at our retreat with him, Dr. Don Wood, who kind of like helps people deal with like trauma from childhood and trauma from way back when that is still affecting them. And we did this whole exercise and we do the whole thing. And I mean, I was like one of the only people who literally could not find something. And like an example of this that people couldn't understand is like at that, at that mastermind retreat, like I told the story of my dad and the plane crash that happened back when I was in my third year or about to start the third year of law school. And people couldn't believe that I could tell that story without crying, I guess. And I just said, well, why would I cry now? I mean, it happened 18 years ago, or, crying now does me no good. And that I recognize, like I had always thought that was just, how most people operated. And it took me a while to figure out most people don't. And so like, that's one example of things, but also another example is that I naturally do something where I take a fact and I pull the interpretation off of it and look at the facts. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people like, and this has come up, I've heard a lot of people about watching the news and how it just brings them down. And how it leads to fear and all those. And I said, well, that's weird because, I watch the news and I'm not afraid. I watch the news, I see the facts, and, I talked about this during COVID. I did a Facebook Live where I said that, that I live by the Stockdale paradox. And I didn't really even know that term. I'd heard the concept, but someone pointed it out to me. And it's basically this concept that when it comes to the short term, I am an utter realist. Like I look at facts and it can come off as me being a pessimist. But over the long term, I am an optimist eternally. I always believe in, that, better things are to come, that good will come, even if in the short term, it's not good. And that's why, probably I set goals that, like for launches, for things like that I'll never meet. I mean, and I never hit my goals because I'm always setting a goal with this optimism. And I'm okay with that because it doesn't, bring me down. But even though like, I guess in some ways I kind of had some natural things where because of the way my brain works, I didn't deal with, things that other people dealt with. The reality is that a lot of people, a lot of stuff was still there. I was still dealing with a lot of mindset stuff. And I was dealing with it in a lot of ways. And there was little things that I dealt with that I recognized. Like part of it, like I had a hang up about hiring. That took me forever. And it was only when I started to kind of examine it and recognize that we can see mindset issues in our actions and in our inactions that I started to get it. And the hiring is a good example for me because people who know me know that I am a fire, ready, aim guy. In other words, like I just do stuff and I go and I am quick and I am not like someone who sits and thinks and does a lot of that. Now I do a lot of thinking. I'm also a very cerebral guy, but I'm an action taker too. And so the fact that I knew I needed to hire, but went like 6 months without hiring was a sign that there was some mental crap going on there. And James helped me work through it. James, like literally with one question, helped me unpack that thing. And that's not the point here. My point is to get that I had to deal with that mental stuff because I knew intellectually, I knew how to hire. I knew, yes, I needed to hire a person to do this. I knew that stuff. I knew the tactics. I knew the strategies. But until I dealt with the mental baggage that was there, I wasn't going to be able to, make progress in my business because I was never going to break through and hire someone. Just the reality is I wasn't going to do it until I dealt with that kind of mental hang up that was there. And so that's like an example of something in my life that I saw. And there's been more and more. And my journey over the last like year and a half to 2 years has been about doing the inner work. And I want to be clear. And as I'm recording this live, I see you, Veronica, saying this. I'm not alone with having mental baggage, but more importantly, you are never done doing the inner work, ever. Being an entrepreneur, and this is what I want you to hear from me, being an entrepreneur and being successful at it ultimately is a series of mindset challenges. And as you get over one, you're like, yes, I dealt with that one. Another one is going to pop up. And some of them are the natural flow of entrepreneurship, like, the hiring, which isn't an issue when you're just starting out. Or once you hire, there's the next things you have to deal with. And it's just kind of this constant thing where you deal with one challenge and then another one pops up. You get to the top of one mountain and then you look up and there's another peak that you still have to climb. And until you kind of accept that and are willing to do that work, things are going to seem much harder than they are. And, I wanted to come and I wanted to do this lesson today because, let's be honest, as I'm doing this live episode, the world and the country, for the last couple of weeks, but even before that, for the last couple of months, we have been dealing with some serious challenges. And knowing where you stand, doing the inner work, doing that stuff with your mind, in my belief, is some of the most important things, not just for your business and for your life. Doing the inner work is where you figure out, what do you believe? What do you stand for? And when you do that inner work, and some of it is business related, and I'll give you a very clear example of that. Before I really started doing this work, I didn't, I'd heard the concept of selling as service, but you know what? I didn't actually believe it. And so selling seemed dirty or bad. I've done the work. And this is why, when COVID came around, I said, heck yes, we should still be selling. Because I believe to my core in everything I do that one of the best ways I can serve people is to sell. Because if I don't sell, first of all, I'm denying people the things I have. But second of all, I'm not building a business. I'm not building the things that then empower me to do the things I care about. And this issue came up in a coaching session last week as part of my Massive Action May. Some of the people who referred a lot of other people did some group coaching with me. And one of those members was struggling. She was trying to kind of hold on to running two different businesses. And it became clear that one of those businesses was really more a passion project and a belief that this is something, an impact I want to have in the world. The problem was her holding on to that and trying to run that business and create that business was taking her time away from another business where she could actually make money and make money way easier. And so I simply asked her a question. Would it be possible that instead of trying to run this business as a business, which is your heart center, which is what you care about, that you focus on building this other business and then do this first thing as a service? You don't charge people. You work with people. You do these people. You do it right now, and you give it away. When you have a powerful business, that's the kind of power you have. But I see this over and over again. And it's part of a bigger mindset issue. And this, you're going to hear it in next week's Tuesday episode, which is already recorded. But I kind of wanted to mention it because of a lot of what's happening right now. That one of the things I see, and I didn't see it before working with James and doing this inner work, is that too many people are trapped in an either-or mentality. They say, I can do this, or I can do this. The reality is that oftentimes it's not either or, it's both and. But you have to open your mind to that prospect. You have to be willing to say, could I do both? Or maybe not even do either. Maybe there's a third option, or there's a creative solution. And I want everyone to be thinking about that because I believe that we can do multiple things at once. I can walk and chew gum. I know that. I can run my business and I can stand up for what I believe in. I can run my business and I can make the change I want in the world by doing things as part of my business, outside of my business, in all these different ways in my life. If I could only choose one, then I'd be screwed. because I can't make the change in the world that I want if I'm not making money. Part of the reason why I have power to make change in the world right now is because I have a platform. And I have that platform because I built the business I have. And I steadfastly believe that the most important, or not the most important thing, but the only thing that will allow me to continue to do that is to continue to build my platform. And so I want everyone to be thinking about that, to just think, is it possible for you to adopt a both and perspective in life, in business, and to understand that running a business and making a living and selling can coexist with doing the good in the world that you want to do, whatever that is to you. My community, I hope, knows what that is to me based on the things I've said this week. And what I want to get you to understand is that when you've done this inner work, and you know what you believe, you know what you stand for, you are comfortable in all of these things. A lot of these challenges that entrepreneurs face, that this, guilt about selling and all those other things, when you know and believe and have done all of this and are dealing with the mindset work, that's when I believe that you will be able to make decisions and stand on your conviction. I know I am. I'm able to make a decision, and let me be clear. I don't believe that once I've made a decision, I can never go back and say, well, that wasn't the right decision, because I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life and my business. But what I mean is that when you're standing up and when you're saying, look, this is what I believe, I've done the mindset work, this is not someone else telling me anything, this is me making this decision, then you will be in a position where you can actually stand and be proud of that decision. And that's my wish for you today. In business and in life, I hope that every one of you who listens to me, who follows me, etc., can get to that point, can get to the point where you have this piece of understanding that you are standing on your convictions and doing the things that you believe are right. Because when you are, life and business gets much easier, even if we face other challenges in life and in the world. So, again, do the inner work. Don't think that being an entrepreneur is just about learning tactics and strategies. Because if you're focused on tactics and strategies, when life, when business, when the world throws you a curveball, you don't know what to do. But when you do this inner work, when you put in the time, I don't want to say there's not a curveball. There are curveballs. But you feel comfortable that you can actually handle those curveballs in life and in business. So, do the inner work, and then you can build the business that you actually want and have the impact you want on the world. That's it for today. I'll see you again on Tuesday. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Make sure to tune in next time. And in the meantime, go out and build the badass business of your dreams.